Hey, it's Garrick, the founder of Eco-Stylist, and today I want to talk about a mistake that we made in our own sustainability journey and the actions that we took to correct that mistake going forward. So as you likely know, Eco-Stylist is the go-to resource for ethical fashion, and a big part of what we do is we research brands for their ethics and their sustainability. The mistake that we made involves putting a brand that doesn't align with our values into our brand directory. And our brand directory is our most popular resource at Eco-Stylist. It's where we compile the most ethical and sustainable brands on Earth. So in order to explain this mistake, I have to explain what makes our brand directory different. And so something that makes our brand directory different from peers in our space, such as Good On You or Remake, is that our brand directory isn't a compilation of all of the ratings and all of the brands that we've researched. Now, obviously, we could do that, and we have brands that fail our criteria all the time, and we sometimes publish articles about those brands or make videos, but that's not what we wanted our directory to be. We wanted our directory to be a place where you could only find brands that pass, only find brands that inspire us, brands that are worth believing in and voting with your wallet. So basically, we want our brand directory to be a place where you can find the best brands on Earth. The recent mistake that we made in our brand directory was adding Everlane. Now you might wonder why this is a mistake. I personally wrote the article that explains how Everlane has improved and why we added Everlane to our directory. Now everything in that article is true. Everlane has improved a lot. Their score increased quite a bit from our evaluation of them in 2019, and they are now technically passing our criteria. But for us at Eco-Stylist and me personally, this was really a moment to pause and reflect. It made me question if our sustainable brand criteria is enough on its own to justify putting a brand in our brand directory. And until now, it has been. Kind of as I mentioned, we want our directory to be a place where you can find brands that are worth supporting, where you can vote with your wallet, and where you can support brands that inspire you and inspire us. And until now, brands that pass our criteria have perfectly aligned with all of that. They are all brands that inspire us and brands that we fully believe in. Now, when it came to Everlane, this wasn't exactly true. I published the brand rating anyway because, following our previous rules, they passed the criteria, and when brands pass, we add them to the directory. But what I realized from this whole experience is that we need another layer from which to evaluate brands, even before we evaluate them with their criteria. So essentially, we came up with three principles, three boxes that a brand needs to check in order for us to even evaluate them in the first place. Now, these three principles are: the brand is not fast fashion, the brand inspires us, and we trust the brand. Now, the last 2 points are probably pretty self-explanatory, but as for the first one regarding fast fashion, I won't go too in-depth in that here because that's not the point of this video, and I've also explained that elsewhere. So if you want to know why fast fashion wouldn't be good enough to be in our brand directory, even if they do improve, we covered that pretty extensively in our recent article on how ethical is H&M, and I'll have a link to that article in the description if you want to check it out. I also talk about it in our other videos, including our videos on H&M, Zara, and Shein, so if you want to know more, check those out. I'll give you the 10-second version of it, and that is that fast fashion brands overproduce and promote disposability of clothing. So basically, even if a fast fashion brand improved and did some of the same things that the brands in our directory do, they still wouldn't be equivalent because they're still promoting disposability of clothing, and they still actually have a much larger environmental footprint than a slow fashion brand does. So you may be wondering, why was publishing Everlane a mistake? So despite Everlane's progress, there's a few reasons that I feel like it's too soon for us to add them to our directory and that we don't trust them just yet. Now, Everlane has made a few changes over the last couple of years. One of them is that their CEO stepped down, and he changed his title to Board of the Chair as well as Climate Activist. Now, this seems like an interesting change because he was in charge of Everlane kind of at the height of a lot of their greenwashing and their controversy, so it might seem like a good move that he stepped down as CEO. However, one thing that does bother us about this change is his title as climate activist. Now, while we want to believe that Everlane is much more focused on the environment and sustainability and that they're really putting more effort there, and it appears that that's true, right? Based on our evaluation, like their sustainability is improving. However, right, this seems like a questionable move to frame yourself as climate activist when, you were previously personally responsible for a lot of the greenwashing that your company did. And so for this reason, it's, just a little bit too soon, something we're still kind of watching. Now, it's not necessarily wrong, but I would say it's a bold move and one that we're just kind of still watching closely to see how it pans out. Now, something else we don't necessarily love is that the new CEO of Everlane isn't really a sustainability pick, right? Like, she's not someone with a ton of experience in sustainability, ethics, running that type of brand, which is really what would have inspired us and what we would have liked to have seen, given how Everlane positions itself as transparency and ethics being so important to it as a brand, right? That's how they position themselves. But their new CEO is really just, a growth expert, really great at growing brands, the financial side, selling, that's all fine and good, but kind of again, it doesn't exactly build trust for us, and it's still something where we're kind of like, okay, let's wait and see a little bit which direction they're really moving in. Now, some other changes that have happened is Everlane's hired a sustainability director, and she looks like a very credible person, looks like she has great experience for this role, and I imagine is responsible for a lot of the good changes that Everlane has been making. On the same note, she's only been there for a year, so it's really hard for us to tell at this point if the organization is going to necessarily continue to move forward in the direction that we hope. I did reach out to Everlane for comment, but didn't receive a response. So for now, it's kind of hard for me to trust some of these things that are happening, without being able to talk to people on the inside. Now, as many of you know, Everlane has a history of accusations of greenwashing, union busting, and allegations of racism within their organization. And some of these things they've addressed well, and some of them we're just kind of waiting to see, right? So as regarding the allegations of racism, we noted this in our article, their new programs on DEI actually look really impressive. So it does look like they've made tangible effort there, and I would say that in that category, we trust them, right? Regarding the union busting, we're just not really sure. They came out with a statement basically, kind of denying that they did that and denouncing it. But we don't also really know if they've changed anything in that regard or made any real improvements. And I would say it's maybe too soon to be sure. And regarding the greenwashing, it's kind of the same. I will say that Everlane definitely is doing less greenwashing these days, especially considering the improvements they've made regarding their sustainability. So obviously, like taking real action, making real improvements, that's the stand taking a step against greenwashing. However, there's still some areas where we might argue they still kind of do it, right? Honestly, I would still say the radical transparency slogan is a bit questionable, because I wouldn't really argue that their transparency is radical. Brands that we certify are much more transparent, some of them. I just Ask It and Known Supply would be great examples of brands with like higher levels of transparency. But additionally, there are also their claim of ethical factories. This might be true, but they really need to do more to support that claim. And as we pointed out in the article, the best thing they could do is provide proof that they pay living wages. That would really support that claim of ethical factories and make it no longer potentially misleading. And finally, there are some less tangible factors here. I'm going to be honest, not everything is black and white and we can't quantify everything, right? So with our criteria, we're looking at what a brand does and we're giving them points, and so at the end of the day, we have a numerical score and in order to evaluate brands. But there's also some things that like in our principles like trust that you can't exactly, put a number on or say like, yes, haha, that's it. It's a little more complicated than that. And so another factor for me in the decision with Everlane is, I know a lot of people in the fashion industry and in the sustainable fashion industry in my network. And when I've talked to a lot of them, I can't say that a lot of them trust Everlane either. And they have various reasons for this, but the thing that I've heard the most is that, from the beginning, they've just seen Everlane not as a sustainable company, but as a marketing company. So that's the criticism I've heard the most, is that they're just really good at, how they promote and how they create an image of themselves, and not so much with the actual substance. Now, kind of back to our evaluation though, with the recent updates and improvements, this is changing. But again, what we've decided is just that it's too soon for us to want to support them, to want to put them in our directory, to feel inspired by them just yet. So for now, we're going to hold out, keep watching them over time and kind of see, where they land a little bit later on. So in quick summary, the mistake that we made was using our sustainable brand criteria as the only guiding principle for what allows a brand to go into our brand directory. Since we want to create a brand directory that you trust, that inspires us, that's the most ethical and sustainable brands on earth, we realized we need more than that. So in order to have more than that, we came up with these 3 principles that a brand must check all the boxes in order to even be evaluated. And that is that the brand is not fast fashion, that the brand inspires us, and that we trust them. Thanks for listening to our update and being here with us on our sustainability journey. If you have any thoughts or questions about any of this, please leave those in the comments. I'd love to answer those. And until next time, dress like you give a damn.